Disclaimer: the following program features language not suitable for all audiences, and the expressed opinions found within this program are a reflection of those who feature on the PopCulture Effect podcast. Welcome to the PopCulture Effect. I'm Rockin Rob, and on this show, I bring my closest friends together to talk about all the news happening in our pop culture world around us.
Welcome to the PopCulture Effect. My name is Gemini, and today I'm joined by two of my greatest friends. We've got Tyler over in that corner.
Hello.
And we've got Rockin Rob in the other.
I'm in my gremlin corner.
Oh, that's... Get out of my f***ing corner, you idiot!
Okay, I'm sorry. It's been so lonely these past few weeks. Okay,
Leave the corner for 5 minutes to start this damn shit, and you take my spot.
You say it's lonely, but everybody else, we've still been here.
Yeah, I know, but I had to drag and Trent in here to talk about the horrible Lilo and Stitch movie. It's been lonely, okay?
Yeah, you did have to drag me, bitch.
I saw I know you guys talked about it, but I saw the trailer for that yesterday, and when she points to Stitch when she's trying to tell her that she's got a dog, she points past the chair that he's sitting in and points to the ground.
Yeah.
You gotta love live-action movies
child actors that shouldn't be actors.
She's trying. She's trying. She's a child.
You can't point at a puppet?
And you can't have adults play the part of children?
Let's not get into that.
Yeah, that's a conversation. That's a can of worms
I already have a mess. Yeah, I already have a lot of opinions about Hollywood and their actors in Hollywood and casting direction. Anyway...
Now, I swear I would have gotten to these a week before, but by the time I had gotten everything kind of sorted out for that week's recording to get it sent out, all this stuff kind of happened, so I guess I'm talking about it now. First off, of course, I would not be a cartoon fan if I did not talk about the fact that Phineas and Ferb are coming back for a new season on Disney Plus and the Disney Channel. Now, this has been a long time coming, as this show ended 10 years ago on June 12th, 2015, with them both making a brief appearance at the end of Milo Murphy's Law on May 18th, 2019. And you know, if I had a nickel for every time that Phineas and Ferb returned in a Disney-based cartoon series, I'd have 2 nickels. Which isn't a lot, but it's kind of weird that it happened twice. Oh, and also the 2 movies that they did, if you count those. But this looks to be another romp in the wonderful world of the tri-state area, and in the tri-state area, who better to look forward to than Dr. Doofenshmirtz himself? And speaking of Dr. Doofenshmirtz, we kind of see how his character somewhat gets reset. Because, you know, in Milo Murphy's Law, he was kind of transitioned into a good scientist, but it's good to see him back to his evil ways, and of course, you couldn't have Dr. Doofenshmirtz without Perry the Platypus. But speaking of Perry, going back over to the main family, this is going to be a really interesting way that they can kind of take this new season, as they really have to come up with all new adventures and all new concepts for episodes. And I mean, the original series ran for almost 190 episodes. I can understand if they have a little trouble finding wholly unique stuff. Granted, we did see quite a few new things going on, like we saw real versions of food-based, as we saw a real version of food-based episode, which I'm sure that'll be fun. And I'm not going to give too much away, but Candace, of course, is trying to bust her brothers like always. And it's kind of crazy because, like I said, a week from that day, it would have been 10 years ago that we had seen the last of the 2 titular brothers. Now, me as a Phineas and Ferb fan, I've always loved this show. I always used to enjoy watching their episodes. It was that and Bakugan, as well as Daigata Defenders. Those were my 3 mainstay shows. So it is just wonderful not only to see these characters come back, but to also have every single individual reprise their roles, because it would be honestly heartbreaking if even one of these characters had a different voice actor. I mean, Valjeet kind of sounds a little bit different, but I think that just might be with the age of the actor. But yeah, everything looks great, everything sounds great. But at the end of the day, I just really hope this is kind of a one-off season where they do the revival season, they have another bit of hype, but then they let it finally drift off into the ethos. Because, you know, we have the original series, we have Phineas and Ferb Across the Second Dimension, we have Milo Murphy's Law, we have Phineas and Ferb, Candace Against the Universe, and also we had Hamster and Gretel, which also technically takes place in the same world, but it went out for 2 seasons, and I don't think anybody really cares about it. Oh, and how can I forget all the wonderful musical numbers we'll hear, because I'm going to be honest, on my Spotify playlist, I have a specific playlist for cartoon songs, and a good portion of them are Phineas and Ferb songs. Like, they all really slap. So I'm really looking forward to see what kind of music we'll be able to hear in this new season. But yeah, to be quite honest, in my opinion, I would absolutely love if within this new season we got to see a reverse crossover with Milo Murphy where Milo shows up, because honestly, their dichotomy with Milo having the bad luck and Phineas and Ferb having the good luck, and that actually being a quantifiable existence within reality, it was just so cool, and it made the characters that much more interesting. But that's pretty much everything I have to discuss when it comes to the new season of Phineas and Ferb. The little boy inside me is quite happy today because there is 104 more days of summer vacation. But now I think it's time for me to send it back to me and my friends for this week's episode.
Moving on from that, because we're not talking about that this time. I'm not talking about movies. In fact, instead, I'm talking about a game that I've been waiting for not as long as the one, but I know I've talked about this as just... When did this bad boy drop? My God, I am so prepared. No, I'm not. March 27th, so that was what?
2 weeks ago?
2 weeks ago? Yes, 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, Krafton, if you are unfamiliar, is the publisher of the beloved, I don't know, I don't play it anymore. The beloved, it's Battle Royale. I know game. I'm a gamer. The beloved Battle Royale of PUBG. Jesus Christ, I'm PUBG, you know, that game that everyone plays except, I don't know. Dude, I'm losing it anyway. Yeah, except any of us, but people play it. The more, what would you say, like realistic variant of Fortnite, I guess? I don't know.
I mean, it was PUBG and H1Z1 were like the progenitors of the Battle Royale genre.
I guess that's fair. But anyway, this is the other child of Krafton's studios, which is Inzoi. It is their form of a life simulation game, and I have clocked almost about 40 hours on this bad boy, so almost a full work week in 2 weeks.
You play it nonstop?
Not nonstop, for particular reasons. And so far in the time that I have had with it, I thoroughly enjoy it. I will say this as a big preface, this game is early access, which means it is an incompleted game right now, but they came out the bat saying that they were going to be releasing this in early access. And I'm fine with that. A lot of times I don't tend to touch games that are in early access, except for very rare instances, such as Baldur's Gate 3 and this game. That's mostly because I don't want to get spoiled or burnt out by the game before its final form. But in those instances, it was different because with Baldur's Gate, it wasn't the full game. It was just like a very small percentage of the first act that you played, and it did well because Larian was able to get a lot of feedback on the game, what they should add, what they shouldn't add, what they should change, and everything, and it worked out well for them. And Krafton's doing the same thing with Inzoi. They released the first, they released it on March 27th of this past year, Jesus Christ, of this year. Of this past month. And I think they have stated that since they dropped it, they have sold 1 million copies of the game. And that's actually very good for an early access game. So far, yeah, it's been doing very, very well. Now, of course, does that mean it is perfect? Of course not. It's early access. It has a lot of problems. They've already released a lot of bug fixes, some patches and everything. And that's understandable. It's unfinished. My experience with it is I've had a lot of fun with it. My computer is, I'd say for its age, it still performs very well, but it is starting to show its age with a lot of newer games. It could not run Monster Hunter Wilds that well. Granted, Capcom does kind of have a track record for their Monster Hunter games where they don't release that well. I'm pretty sure that happened with Worlds a long time ago when it first released for console.
It took
PC.
forever for Worlds to run decently on PC.
Exactly. So
it wasn't until Icebreaker, I think, where it actually started to run decently.
Jesus. So, like, on one hand, it could be my computer, it could be the game, it could be both. It's hard to say, but it is showing its age. I was afraid that Inzoi would give me the same problem because this was was created, I believe so this is powered by Unreal Engine 5, so it's a very, very realistic looking game. Very, very powerful. But I've had no problems with running it. Granted, I am not pushing my poor little CPU to run it on Ultra. As much as I would like to, I have a feeling that's going to turn the poor thing into a pile of cinder and ash. So I play it on low graphics, not the lowest. There's actually a setting lower than that. And the game still actually looks very good for it being on low settings. Everything still looks very nice. The shadows can look a little juddery at times, and there's like some like visual, I don't want to say it's tearing, but like it's very strange like visual effects that happen from on my end. But from what I've seen of people online, like YouTubers and such who will play it on Ultra, they also have this thing. So I think that is more of a game thing rather than a hardware issue. I've also heard that people have been able to play this game on MacBooks, which from what I've heard, they're not the greatest at gaming. So at first, this game was kind of I don't want to say marketed, but projected to kind of be very powerful. And it is, but it's not as bad as people were anticipating. So I think in optimization, they've done a pretty good job for this game still being very early in its early access. When talking about a lot of like how the game, its functions and everything. So the character customization, which is called Inzoi, that's actually very, very good. Very detailed. You can make almost anybody in the game, from yourself to actual celebrities, attempt to recreate characters from shows, whether they're real people, which again, that plays into actors, or animated. It's a little bit more difficult because that is then the realistic aspect. So you would have to like figure how they would look in rather from a 2D cartoon perspective than a 3D like realistic perspective. You can also make f***ing monsters in this game. I've seen some people make some real doozies of characters. I made one at one point as a joke when I was just testing out the limits of this damn thing. It's pretty good. The options are a little limited, but again, you have to keep in mind that this game isn't done. Completely fine. There's a lot of things they're going to add. The game itself runs perfectly well. A lot of what you can do is for it being incomplete, there is a lot to do. However, this is then where I will kind of do a 180 in the sense of it's still not perfect. And this is even beyond the fact of it being unfinished imperfections. These are now going into issues with the game of imperfections that are either causing some controversies or some limitations or problems. So one of the biggest ones, and this was one of the biggest ones that even came up when the game first was dropped for its demo, when they released the character creator demo, Crafton is using a lot of AI or generative AI thing, which I know a lot of people have certain opinions about this. I myself have not been able to utilize a lot of the generative AI because it does require a much more powerful graphics card than what I currently have. So an instance of how people can utilize this is for generating a pattern. They can type in, say, plaid, and it generates a plaid pattern.
You got this?
Plaid pattern. Holy shit.
I'm proud of you.
And all of that. There is also some speculation, and Crafton has not been transparent about this part, is so when Inzois go to level up their creative skill through painting, are the paintings they create made from actual artists, or are they just generated AI art? They haven't been transparent about that. They've actually been very quiet. So that is another like problem. Like, are they paying artists, or are they just generating AI art? Which a lot of people don't like. They don't appreciate that, and that is one of the biggest controversies with Inzoi right now, is about their usage of AI. As an artist myself, it is very disheartening to see the fact that, like, if they are using generative AI for making this rather than paying an artist, that is very disheartening and saddening to hear. But it is also an instance of, like, to play devil's advocate, it kind of is the times. It's a company is always going to go for the option that is cheaper and quicker, and there's not really much from a consumer's perspective we can do aside from to just boycott them and not buy it. But it's a very small instance. Another form of the AI they're using, and this one is a bit more interesting, rather than it being a generative AI, I believe this is, the game also has a function where you can import your own imagery into the game. And in two instances where you can either like import an image to the game to make it a pattern or like a picture, or as a 3D object. So you could like get a picture of your face, and then your face is a like object in the world. It's so weird. It doesn't always work, but it looks goofy. Yeah.
Oh, ew. Wait, like your physical like image of of your face.
Yes, you can import a JPEG of your face into the game, and then it will generate a 3D object of your face to be used as like a sculpture. Because I think they plan to eventually you can use it for a lot of things, but right now it's just kind of like a freestanding like sculpture, essentially.
Because I remember that back in the DS days when you were able to use that technology to make your Miis, where it would just take a picture of you and it would duplicate it onto the Mii. But this is probably a lot more detailed, where you could actually see your physical face rather than being like a translation.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no. It's basically that, and it's not perfect, like I said. It has its moments, but as I was saying, it's not perfect, and it's still a little janky at times, and that's probably just because, it's probably got some bugs that need squeaked out and everything. Another problem that Inzoi has kind of been facing is, and this is, it's hard to say with this one if this is because of the fact the game is unfinished, or if it's on the developer side, and a lot of people have been noticing, I even noticed it too, but this is going to sound bad, but I didn't really care, is the fact that, hold on, collecting my thoughts. Another like controversy with the game is like the hold on, it's there. Hold on. The prevalence? No. Not inclusion. Prevalence is the main thing, but that's not the word I'm thinking of. It's basically the game doesn't, so for right now in its state, the game is not very LGBT friendly, we'll say. That's the best way I can describe it because my brain is dying. So the game does, like, you can create gay couples, lesbian couples in the game, but one instance is like in character creator for a man and a woman, I just smacked my mic, for a man and a woman, it says wife. Husband and wife. For a gay couple, say two women, it just says partner rather than like wife. It could either be a glitch, it could be something with translation, because the game, for English at the very least, is only like 95% translated from Korean to English. And there are some like translation problems with the game. Like you can very much tell when you read things, it looks a little wonky, so the translation is still a bit like wonky. Or it could be the fact that because of where Crafton is originated from, I am under the impression that I believe South Korea doesn't have the most open of culture about those kind of things, and I'm not going to get fully into that because that is a very hot button can of worms to get into, but it has been something that they stated that they do plan on fixing. Again, whether or not they claim it's a bug, but it's hard to really say if they're being truthful about that, but it is something that they have mentioned. And another thing with that is a lot of the pre-generated Zois, as they're called, are all generated straight, so it's kind of an issue for people, and I can understand that, but again, it's something that they said they're going to work on. It's just hard to say like whether or not they are being correct not correct, if they're being truthful in the sense of it truly is a bug or an oversight in their instant or in their not logic. You know what I'm trying to say, right? Maybe.
Yeah.
But one thing though, in the end overall, is a lot of people were anticipating that this would be a Sims killer, because that's what it is. It is a life simulation game. Create your little Zoe, your little character. You plonk him in the world of either Dowon, which is meant to kind of be like, I think, Seoul of South Korea, or Bliss Bay, which is kind of supposed to be like, I think, an LA-inspired world. And you play their life. You do what they want. Or it's a life sim game, It's The Sims, but it's not The Sims. Because a lot of people were thinking this would be a Sims killer. I don't think it's going to be that. One, just because of the fact of its early access, it's got a lot of limitations still. But also, there doesn't have to be a game killer of a specific brand. It's just another flavor. It's just a form of competition. And that's necessary. I have been talking so endlessly till I've gone blue in the goddamn about how EA has gotten lazy because they know they're the only thing in their genre that is king. They need competition. And I think this is a good contender as competition, but it's not a killer, because that's not something we should be striving for in the gaming world. We shouldn't be striving for this. We should be striving for competing for the approval and the attention and essentially the money, your consumers. That's the whole point, is competition. And honestly, I think this is a pretty decent competitor for The Sims. right off the bat when this game was dropped, it dropped for $40 USD, which was the price of the Sims 4 base game when it first released. So already that's a good comparison in the sense they dropped at the same price. It's technically $39.99, but rounded up to 40. It's basically $40 with tax. Already right off the bat, Inzoi in its base game, unfinished base game, might I add, has a lot more meat to its bones than The Sims 4 did on its first day of release. The Sims 4's first day of release, which was quoted to be a finished game, was garbage and completely shit. They had maybe a fraction of what the previous games did, and this game has well over more than what the other game did. So right off the bat, it shows that like they're striving to do more, but they have made a hiccup or two to kind of pull themselves back, which again, you have that push and pull of competition, and I think that's good for both of them. EA has technically, since Inzoi has dropped, to attempt to showcase that they're better than Inzoi. Their method of it was a little corporate cringe, I'll admit. But basically, though, EA, like, they did their own thing to try and prove that they're a little better than Inzoi, which, again, it's starting to show that the wheels are turning for competition. This is great, because the other life simulator we were supposed to get got canceled, which was Life by You. Very tragic. Very sad to see that go, because that was being headed by Will Wright. But we still have another one on the back burner that will be coming out sometime soon this year. Don't know when. They don't have a date yet, but it's a team of like 10 people, so you know they can take their time.
One question I had a question about Inzoi. Graphics wise, how does it compare to Sims from a 1-to-1 basis?
So that's actually, you see, that's kind of like because they're both very different. Inzoi is a very realistic graphics. So think of like, you know, I'm sure you've played PUBG. It's a very realistic graphics game. GTA 5, that's a very realistic graphic game. Sims 4, on the other hand, is more cartoony. So that one is, you know, it's a lot more cartoony. Yeah, you can have mods to make your characters look more realistic, but it still just has that like undertone of cartoony, and when you try to make it realistic, it actually gives like an uncanny valley look to them. So it's actually kind of hard to properly compare them just due to the fact they're both different styles. For me personally, the realistic aspect of Inzoi is cool, but I kind of prefer the more cartoony aspect because it creates a more fun environment for me personally. Like, the realism of Inzoi is neat, it's great, but it feels too realistic at some points, and it's just a bit off-putting almost, or unnerving. Not to the point of Uncanny Valley, but just like, it almost feels a little soulless. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because the cartoony style of The Sims 4, it was goofy. It was like a very starkly different from The Sims 3, which tried to go a bit more realistic. They still had a bit of pudding face, but it was a little bit more real, and it was a little like goofy. But I think the main thing also for me with Inzoi is the fact of the vibe of the realism doesn't fit the weird vibe they're trying to go with of the games. I guess like who it's targeted for.
Now, despite the fact that I'm kind of just doing more member berries, personally, I love Phineas and Ferb, and I also love the fact that South Park has put out its trailer for season 27, and if you're a fan of South Park, you know that they are topical and they go for the throat, and they are going to be covering quite a few interesting topics throughout this season, mostly the ongoing ketamine issue, P. Diddy, and the ongoing situation between Canada and US. I will not be getting political here, but I'm just pointing out that that's what they showed in the trailer. But one thing I'm really hoping from this season is that we get the more episodic-based storytelling rather than the congruent full season story. I just want to go back to going into an episode and not having to worry about watching the entire season to know the full context. It was a good experiment, I liked it, but I would really like them to save that kind of storytelling for these specials, and if they ever make another movie. Now, the few details that we got from this trailer is that we got a few cameos from old characters like Moses from the Super Best Friends and the Meteor Shower episode, at least Kenny and Kyle's episode in that 3-part episode. And we also got to see Starvin' Marvin, which is cool to have that kind of callback. But the one main thing we are seeing within this season is just kind of a collapse of everything. The town's on fire. They show off that at the NATCA, it's essentially being run by children, going off again what's going on in the US with the heightened job loss. And I'm sure that'll result in some pretty hilarious moments because South Park loves their chaos. And with kids running airport navigation, that's just gonna end well. And we also see a great establishing shot for which seems to be a Canadian battlefield. And I always love when they touch on Canada. It's just honestly one of my favorite parts. I don't even care if they're making fun of us. Like, we talk like that, eh? We kind of do. I would honestly love if our faces and heads moved like that, but that's just me personally. Now, the one interesting thing about this trailer is the fact that we don't know who's at the cause of all this. Because, as we know, Mr. Garrison stopped being president because Matt and Trey wanted to divert from the overly political landscape that they were pulling from for the last couple seasons. So it'll be interesting to see who is actually causing this. I mean, hell, it might end up being the giant douche or the turd sandwich from way back in the voting on the class mascot episode, which I think that would be a really cool deep cut. But I have always been a fan of South Park. Yes, it had a bit of a lull period where interest kind of dipped down, but ever since they started doing the bigger scaled events and special episodes, and now that hopefully South Park can wrap up their legal troubles, regardless of what side that lands on and who comes out winning out on top, I just want to see South Park return in full force. They've almost hit 30 seasons. I think that is quite the accomplishment for a show that was just started by a couple guys cutting out paper cardboard. Now that's pretty much everything I have to discuss when it comes to the season 27 teaser trailer. I mean, I guess the only other thing that was shown off is Kyle is turning into a turkey, so maybe that'll be the Thanksgiving episode, but who really knows? All I know is that South Park is always chaotic, it is always unexpected, and it always throws us for a loop, and it always subverts expectation. But it'll be a bit before we get to sit down with this show, as it'll be coming out a month after Phineas and Ferb launches, as this will come out on July 9th to Comedy Central. So I would definitely suggest checking it out when it airs. But again, that's all I have to discuss when it comes to the upcoming season of South Park, and now it's time to send it back to me and my friends to end this week's episode. Anyways, that's, like I said, that's pretty much everything we have to discuss for this week and all other subsequent weeks that this session is attached to, because holy shit, we went for 2 whole hours. That's crazy. But yeah, thank you so much, Menace, for joining me. And then I'll input the farewell that he gives. And thank you so much, Gemini.
A pleasure as always.
And now it's time to... Whoa, I almost did my corner outro. Whoa.
Don't forget the plug.
Yeah, I forgot all about the plug. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. If you're checking us out on the CJSW network, make sure to check out all the other lovely programming they have to offer. And that's it for us this week, so we will see you in the next one. Farewell.
Bye-bye.
So wait, who should start? Like, who should intro?
I don't know.
Whoever does the first topic. I always do it.
All right, go ahead, Trin.
Oh. Like, do I have to do the whole, like, beginning portion, like the welcome and all that?
No, remember that's just the intro.
Never had to do that.
You've never. Is the only one that's thought we've had to do that.
I don't, dude, I'm stupid.
No, it's okay. We're all a little stupid.
How am I doing this?
You've done the intro so many times, Trin.
I know, it's been a while, okay?
You just gotta jump into it. Like,
welcome to the PopCulture Effect. I'm here today with Albert and Menace.
Okay.
You got this. I believe in you.
Okay. Let me adjust.
You need to do the High School Musical warm-ups.
No, I'm just trying to adjust the little, like, thingy in front of my mic. Here, let's move it up a bit, and let me, like, actually sit up like an actual human instead of the goddamn
Gremlin.
Orangutan.
The
gremlin I am.
No, I hear that.
Yeah, just, no, the shrimp sitting, just, ugh.
Yep.
Anyway.
I'm shrimping right now.
I shouldn't, but I do because I'm retarded. Anyway, welcome to